U.S. climate envoy John Kerry is in Beijing this week for talks about environmental policies. Meanwhile, China yesterday said its economy has nearly stalled. Here to discuss the situation is Senior Fellow in Energy and Environment at the Centennial Institute, Kelly Sloan, whom I spoke with earlier today. Kelly Sloan, thanks for joining us. John Kerry is asking China to follow America's example and cut emissions. But considering China's track record, can they be trusted to keep any promises on climate or otherwise?
No, they can't, especially considering that in the last quarter two, their economy shrunk to a 0.8% growth. That means they haven't had the post-COVID growth spurt that they were really hoping for. They're running into a lot of unemployment. They're running into a lot of other economic problems, and they are not going to hobble their economy any further by advancing some of these climate goals, like getting themselves off of fossil fuels, no matter how much John Kerry begs them to.
And following on from that, as a Wall Street Journal opinion piece points out, China won't make climate concessions at the expense of economic growth. Would you agree with this statement? And if so, what risk does this pose to the U.S., which does seem willing to make such compromises?
Yeah, first of all, yes, I agree absolutely. They are. Xi Jinping himself has said that they're not going to tie their climate goals to non-realistic expectations on the ground. So we can't really expect them to meet these goals, whatever their rhetoric might be. And the risk to the U.S., of course, in this is how much we are going to be willing to concede. Is it going to be trade concessions? Is it going to be arms sales to Taiwan? Is it going to be security promises to Taiwan? All of those things could be on the table. China is looking at this as a bargaining chip, not as a serious fight against climate change or against pollution in general. So that's the risk to the U.S., that we come at the table. John Kerry is coming at this so desperate for some kind of climate deal to bring China up to our level. And keep in mind, over the last several years, about a decade or so, China's emissions have been growing while the U.S. emissions have been dropping. So, no, I think it's entirely unrealistic to expect China to live up to any promise they might make.
Now, Kerry's comments in China have drawn criticism from some lawmakers. He praised the Chinese Communist Party for increasing green energy sources. But as Senator Marsha Blackburn points out, that work is done using child labor and allegedly Uyghur slave labor. What's your reaction to that?
She's absolutely correct. We have to keep in mind, we're not dealing with an economy like ours. We're not dealing with another Western democracy. This isn't like going into negotiations with Germany or Ireland. This is a regime that does not respect individual human rights. They've demonstrated that over and over again, especially under the current regime. So anything that we do, whenever we're approaching the People's Republic of China, we need to keep that in mind. We need to keep in mind who we're dealing with and what kind of economy they're based on. Senator Haggerty said it perfectly, that everything to the Chinese Communist Party is political. That's an ideological staple of theirs. And if we're not looking at our negotiations with them through a realistic lens, it's only going to end up hurting us.
Kelly Sloan, Senior Fellow in Energy and Environment at the Centennial Institute. Really appreciate your insights.
Thank you.